Hey, how's it going, guys? Austin here from TechRx, and today is the day we go over the Snow White build, my personal build, start to finish. This is a long overdue, awaited how-to slash what are the components for this build. So without further ado, let's get into it. Starting with the case, obviously the big what's that case? Leon Lee 011D. It's in a white finish. White on the bottoms, the top. Not going to turn the case, but you'll see that later. They got the silver finish on top, or on the side panel, front panel, I'm sorry, here. So every single one's like that, except for the black one. So the silver and whites are the same. And what's going to be powering this beauty is a Ryzen 9 3900X. A wonderful CPU. Love building with that. Here we got the Western Digital Black 1 terabyte. Then we have the Corsair. Sorry guys, can't see there. Corsair Vengeance Pro RAM. I believe we are building this with 2 8s in each pack. 32 total. Leon Lee Shimmer Plus 24 pin and 8 pin cable as well. So definitely a must. The beautiful fans everyone asked me about. These are the Corsair Ql120 fans. 41 LEDs per fan. These things are absolutely stunning and beautiful. Topping it off with the AIO cooler, H100R RGB Platinum SE. Comes with 2 LLs. What we do with this build, everyone always asks, how do you have 3 fans, yada yada yada. We place the cooler on this side here, and we take the LLs out and replace them with QLs. So we'll go more in depth with that later. This build we're using a 750 GT power supply, and what's housing all this stuff is a ASRock X570 Pro. Wonderful motherboard, guys, very budget friendly, but does its job. And it is once again an X570, so it is future proofed for if you decided to go into the new 5000 cards or CPUs. I'm sorry. And then the GPU is not on the table, but we are using a Gigabyte 2070 Super White. I get a lot of questions about that too, guys. I did not paint it. It is the white edition, and it is so hard to find. We managed to get our hands on a couple more for these builds that people want. So, yep, without further ado, guys, that is the build list. We'll go more in depth and cover a little bit more. This is also something else I just about forgot about, but we'll go over this as well real quick. This is an internal USB hub to house all these fans, to plug them up. There's many other options that you can do. You can do a Commander Pro as well. We'll give USB hubs, but this is very inexpensive. NZXT internal USB hub, $19.99. And then also these are a must as well. This is a 2-pack of fan splitters, so you'll need this pack as well to complete power to the fans. And this is a 1 male to 2 female cord, 3 female cord, sorry. So you're gonna have to hook these up for power. So we'll go more in depth, guys, when we get into the build with this, but we will get things started. Stay tuned. Okay, guys, so this is the complete motherboard process. We have the ASRock X570 that I mentioned before. We're using it in this build. Ryzen 9 3900X, and you guys know the whole ordeal on how to do this, right? Match up the arrows and you're good. It's just standard kind of, you put the CPU into the motherboard. So this is your first video. This is something new for you. If it's not, you guys know how this lines up. You find out where the little arrow is, and it's really hard to tell, but that arrow's right there. And then you find the little arrow on here, and it's right there in that corner. So then you just drop her in. So arrow there, and arrow there. you just buckle her down in. That's that, guys. And then for the next thing we'll do is just your RAM. These are, once again, 4/8. Since we're doing 4, it doesn't matter what slot you put in, but if you're only doing 2, you definitely want to stagger them. So it'd be either a 1 and 3 or 2 and 4 slot. Once again, since we have 4, we don't have to worry about that. You can just go ahead and place them. So pull these back, get these lined up. They just go in one way. You can't really mess them up. You can if you press them down and they're not in. They have slots that they go in, guys. So make sure this, on this type of motherboard, some motherboards have pins this way and pins that way to flap out and then clamp in. This one just has one set, so you just kind of press firmly until you hear the click. Sometimes it's a little hard to do. I'll start this one down here so I can see. That's the sound you want to hear. Sounds terrible, but I promise you, it's going in and it's working. Make sure you get them lined up. Make sure they're seated correctly, because you can have some issues if they're not. So you always want to make sure you're getting the click noise. All right. So there we go. RAM's in, CPU's on. Next, what we'll do is M.2 Western Digital. So this one's a little bit trickier on this motherboard. Not really tricky, but something to pay attention to. So you're gonna have to remove the heat sink. And that bit's too thick. There we go. Make sure these screws are all the way undone. Remove this. Some motherboards have multiple heat sinks. This one has, I think only one, right? So this little bad boy is going to slide in here. First, we got to put the screw down so that way it sits flush. So the screw is going to go here. So we need to take this guy. It comes in your motherboard. We need to put this down on the board here. Nope. It's got a sticker. You gotta break through them. You gotta break through it, right? Yep. I think you gotta remove this sticker. Yeah, it's a little, so there's a little teeny tiny plastic sticker on there that you gotta remove. You can force it through there, but yeah, we're gonna remove the sticker. It's like a yellow color, so you can see it. So get rid of that, put the screw down, and we're moving. You can put SSDs, guys. You can do M.2s. It's personal preference. So really good deal right now. You can find deals out there all the time on hard drives. So SSDs, hard drive, M.2s. So this is just going to slide in. It's kind of hard. Okay, how you know you did it right is because it pops back up like a diving board. And then what we need to do now is take our heat sink shield, oh, it goes on there. Gotta put this little guy on there to secure it down, and then we'll put the heat shield back on. This screw is hard as heck to get in. So this little guy secures the M.2 in place. And then the heat sink is going to go over that. And that's how it's going to roll. So gonna fit like this, back on. Peel this off. Sometimes we forget. Make sure it's tight and secure, guys, and it will adhere itself to the M.2. There you go. That's the part of the motherboard. Okay, so now we got the motherboard out of the way. We're going to do the top fans now. So this can be done to your liking, to your way. Each QL, each fan usually has a little marker. You got to find it. It's usually on the back. These little arrows here point the direction it's going to spin and how it's going to spin. So if it's intake versus exhaust. So you definitely want to pay attention to that, guys. Speaking on Corsair, they're usually the same, but every fan is different. So you definitely want to pay attention to that. For this build, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be mounting these up like this. So these are going to be mounted up top, like so. That way they're going to be pushing air down. Up, I'm sorry. See? Sometimes you just got to take a second look. So all the air is going to be coming out. Heat rises, pushing out of the case. So we are going to be mounting these this way. So another thing too, when mounting the cases, you always got to check, you know, where's my wire coming from. So having it in the right position is key when setting up this 9-fan build. For instance, you could do it like that, or you could actually do it like that. But if you do it like that, you're gonna run into another one right here, which is totally fine, but it's really hard to explain on camera, or even explain it really, unless you're actually doing the build and you can actually see where the wires are gonna be. You can't butt them up wire to wire because it just won't work. So like you couldn't mount the fans like this. So, sounds stupid, guys, but I get a lot of those questions. Which way do I mount the fans? How do I mount them? So we're showing you every little detail in this build. So come with these little screws. You're just going to need 4 of those, and then from there you find the position of where you want to mount the fan. I'm going to mount it this way because I want the wires to go directly in this hole, and you just screw in from the top. So we will fast forward on this and go from there. Okay, now that we got the fans up top, all of them are secured. Another little tidbit of information too. See how we have this gap here? We don't really care for it because we want the gap to be there. You can actually fluctuate this. So if you don't tighten down these screws, you can actually push all the fans left, push them right. So positioning is completely up to you guys. I prefer, since you're seeing glass you're seeing this. So I don't want this to be seen over here, but it's, once again, personal preference. So now that we got that, we are going to, the fans in, we're going to put the motherboard in. So that is our next step. All right, so this particular motherboard, the plate actually needs to be put into the the plate needs to be put into the case, and then from there, guys, you just line it up. Make sure it's lined up on the inside, outside. There's little tabs. Every motherboard is different though, guys, so sometimes you might not even have this step as far as the plate. It's always good to double check. Double check, triple check. And then from there, the only thing we're going to do is find the screws. There should be 8. Should be 8 screws for the motherboard. You can see, excuse me, kind of where the holes are, and just line those up. And then the screws that you're going to be using are going to be, they're going to look like they have washers built in them already, so real little guys. This particular case, these are the motherboard screws. Once again, there's 8. Should be 8. So, you just gotta find out where they are. Make sure the holes are lined up before you start going, putting them in there. All right, and that's it. That's all the screws. So, just double check, triple check, guys. See if you guys all have every screw into the motherboard. I definitely don't want to miss a screw in there. And then the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna load the AIO right here, and we're going to put the extra fan down here. We're running a, like I said earlier, H100 RGB Platinum AIO, 240 millimeters. So the question I often get all the time is, how do you have a white AIO from Corsair? Well, the trick of the trade is the AIO is a 240 millimeter AIO, and we add an extra fan on the bottom. And the trick to this is you have to put the fan in first down here, and then the AIO behind this. So the AIO is going to sit behind this too. So, all right. So as we said, we're going to do the AIO. In order for the AIO to go in, you actually have to screw this fan in first. This fan in first, and you guys will see why. I'm going to flip the computer over, screw in this fan, and then when we come back, you can actually see what I'm talking about. Sorry. All right, so screws have to go. The way you have to line this up, it's very tricky. I've done it so many times, so I know exactly where the screws go. These little holes right here have to line. They have to be on the very bottom. If you move them down here, you see the top holes go away. It needs to be right here. And you can just get this kind of started. You don't need to screw it down all the way. Obviously, cross thread here. This guy in. And keep them kind of loose so you can kind of move it. But once again, doing this so many times, this is the ultimate placement where you're gonna have to have it. It's gonna have to ride. The screw is actually gonna have to be right on the very bottom of this bracket. Slide all the way down, and that's when you know it's fit. And then just go ahead and tighten. This will give you enough clearance to fit the other 2 fans and the AIO. Okay, so how the AIO fits, you're gonna have to come underneath here, bring the AIO up, trace all your wires, and this is actually gonna have to fit up in here. Very snug, but it fits and lays down. And then the other part to this is you'll take these QLs, place them accordingly where you want your wires. Got caught on there. Alright, now that we got the fan in place, it should all line up nicely. Here, I'll get it. Line it up here. You may have to make minor adjustments, as we're going to now, to get it lined up, because sometimes it will be off a little bit. So it's always good if you have someone else to help you out with it, so it lines up perfectly. Just line up the holes. The cool thing about putting it in the back is you can kind of take it and adjust it a little bit, so should all match up perfectly. And then the next, what we'll do next is we'll be taking the AIO, depending on if you went Intel or you went AMD. It comes with adapters as well, which we'll go over. This one right here we need to take off. So best thing to do, AIOs come with thermal paste. You do not want to get this anywhere on you, near you, anywhere. It's not going to hurt you, but it's just a pain in the rear to reapply it. So take that off. What's going to happen, you're going to have to pull these off. If you got two people, it's better, but you can do it yourself by one. You just pull straight down. What we're doing is pulling this pin out. It's a little awkward, but you don't want to get your hand on the paste. Someone's here to help you, even better. There you go. Okay, now that we have the fans on, AIO all assembled, you're going to take these little brackets. We're using AMD, obviously, so we have the AMD brackets on. You're going to want to put these little guys on before. Reason why is when you go down and you attach it to the CPU, the little brackets will hold it in place. So we found out, trial and error, it's easier just to put them on there and loop them in. So the only thing you're going to do is you're going to line these up. Don't actually put it on there yet, but you want to loop these in. Make sure they're attached. I'm pulling up on it a little bit so I know it's attached, and when I know it's going to be where it's going to be, make sure it's lined up, and we'll start tightening the
bolts. I'm still pulling up a little bit just to kind of help with the pressure because you just don't want it to slip. You want to make it very tight. So, end result, AIO is installed. Okay, so now the AIO is there, how to plug it up. You got SATA power. This right here, depending on your fan or your motherboard, this is for the AIO pump hookup. So this is going to be different placement depending on your motherboard. This is Corsair AIO, so this comes with splitter. One is for power, one is for RGB. Most AIOs will have the exact same things, but it is labeled 1122 and so on. So these are the cables coming off. And then the power to the pump, you're gonna need this little guy. The H100 comes with this. This is just USB power to micro USB. And then this goes in the side. It should be long ways down. So you just go and put this on the side here. What you're gonna do, this is gonna be a USB hookup, so you just wanna trace this into the back. And that's all. This particular goes CPU fan right here. CPU fan. This says CPU fan 2 WP. You would think it was that one, but it's not. It's actually different. So just read your manual and see which header it goes to. The headers could be down, could be up. Just our biggest tips and tricks would be to check and see where it is on your motherboard. Just trace these wires back, and that's it. Okay, so what we did is ran the front panel connectors out. So you got all your power, LEDs, power button, everything is going to hook up always at there's a spot for it on the motherboard. Once again, everything's going to be different. Every motherboard is going to be different. On this ASRock model, it's going to be on the bottom. It's pretty self-explanatory. HD audio plug-in goes into the HD audio plug-in. There's the one missing. You just line up the one missing, so one missing is top. And you find one missing top. And this is gonna go plugged in right here. HD audio 1. Cable's being a little funky. Plugs in, make sure it's in all the way. Bam. And then your front panel connector is going to go right here. It's USB 3, it's going to say. This needs to be turned around, but it's pretty easy. Plugs in right here. Once again, these USB front panel connectors, this USB 3 could be located on the bottom, and some builds could be located on the side. So always double check. Okay, so these just plug up. These are your front audio. Not audio, sorry. Power, HD LED, power plus, power negative. These just go right here where it's labeled on the motherboard. They just go. This is going to go plus, minus, and then power SW. So So no really easy way to plug these guys up, but just work with it. And then the HD goes at the bottom. It's the hardest one to get to. Just like that. And that's it. So before we put the fans in, you don't have to do this in this order, but I like to. On this build we are running, highly recommend, only way to get this 9 fans to run correctly, and have USB 2.0 internal with external. This is an NZXT hub, there's a magnet on the back too as well, it's really nice. So we're going to take the USB 2.0, plug it in the only slot on this motherboard, and route it to the back of the computer. So plugged in, you can route it left, you can route it right. I think we're gonna route it way left. Chaser back there, and we will use this later. It's always good just to get it out of the way, as well as alright, we'll mess with that in a minute. Alrighty. Get that off a lot easier. I'll route it underneath the power supply. And then we will mess with that in a minute. Alright, now that's taken care of. Another thing we need to do, guys, these talked about earlier, these are the fan splitters. It's 1 female, 3 male. This is definitely needed in this build, ×2, to get all the fans power. These are going to be called fan 2 or fan, anything fan power. You might have 2 or 3 slots on your motherboard. So we're going to plug this guy in. And route it in the back as well. So. And that's it. Alright, and the next one, once again, just find that empty spot. We're going to use this CPU fan 2 right up here. Gonna go in, just trace the cables in the back. We'll use these later. Alright, now we got that sorted out. Continue with the fans on the bottom. Alright guys, so now that we got everything buttoned up in the front, time to do some rework in the back with wires. All these cords here say 2 RGB that are yellow. Go to RGB hubs, which I'll soon get out in a second. Everything else splitting off, doesn't have a yellow cable, is power for the fans, which will go to the fan splitters. But first, before we do all that, we want to put the power supply in the actual case. So comes with the 4 screws. You put it on here on the Leon Lee. It has a little stand right here. So it fits perfectly and sits directly like that. All your hookups in the back, power off and on back there. Take your 4 screws and put them on the right hand side, and that's it. Okay, so 2 RGB goes to the fan hub. Plug looks like that. Fan power plug looks like that. So we're going to show you how this works on just the fan splitter, and then you just multiply that times till they're all hooked up. So you take the non-yellow cord with Corsair Ql120s for power. You take your fan hub splitter, plug it in just like so, and then you repeat. Repeat until all fans are hooked up. So when the AIO is hooked up, you take the 2 fans that are on the AIO, which these 2 fans here, you trace the wires over. The AIO has a hookup for power for your fans. Hook these into the top, that's it. It will also have 2 other cords that are RGB. I already zip tied them. You don't need to use those. We have enough RGB hookups with the hubs that come with the QLs that we don't need them. And then after hooking up the fan splitters, you might have one more cable that needs to have power, fan power. Just find a CPU fan on the motherboard and we will touch on that later. Okay, so Corsair QL fans, QL only. They come with this RGB hub. Now this is going to be completely different than the LL hub. The LL hub has a 3-prong spot up top to connect it to another adapter that gives it USB power. The QLs came out after the LLs, so I think what they did to justify clutter and having 2 devices, they went to an all-in-one, which plugs up SATA and then USB, which is why we require this NZXT USB 2.0 hub, because we would run out of ports. This only motherboard that we're working with now only has 1 USB 2.0 port. So you plug it into that leads to the motherboard. This is powered by SATA cable as well, old SATA, and gives you three hub ports. So we're gonna hook all these fans up to this, and you just follow this. So the key factor of this guy is you can't put it in 1, 3, 5, 6. You got to go in order. So you can have 1, 2, 3, 4, or I mean 1, 2, 3, 4. You can't have 1, 2, 3, 6. Does that make sense? It will not work like that. For it to be on the same channel, you have to use input 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You have to use it in order. Ran into some issues when people just plug one here, plug one here, plug one here. It's not going to work that way. So we will use all 6 spots on this. That will leave us with 3 more fans that need power, and we'll just do 1, 2, 3 on the next hub. Alright, so now that we got the back tidied up, guys, we will touch on that a little bit more and clean it up after we get all these plugged in. But power supply's in. We're plugging in the 24 pin, plugging in the 8 pin for the GPU, CPU. And then what we're gonna do is this particular build, we're gonna use a pair of Leon Lee Strimmer extension cables. They're the RGB cables. So this is just your main. Hooks up 24 pin, and then we're gonna run the extension from here to the actual motherboard. So all the RGBs are hooked up, ready to go. Got in place here, and I'll eventually actually secure this so it doesn't bounce around. But until you get everything kind of situated in the way you want it, I wouldn't go placing things permanently. So the only thing next we're going to do is start plugging up all of our SATA cables, peripheral cables. We're going to need to use that, our CPU, and we're going to run all those up to the motherboard. Okay, so we got the 24 pin hooked up to the Leon Lee Strimmer. I'll show you guys a front view in a second. And then we have the extensions for the GPU ran as well. They're up here. I had to reverse it. The channel to run everything. How we hook it up. A lot of people are indifferent about hooking it up. It can hook up to your motherboard. We hook it up with a controller because it comes with 18 presets. These are just different ways you can change speed, the lighting effect, the effect, and then I believe the brightness. So I like to shove it in the back right here because you can access it on this side and mess with it rather than taking your whole case apart just to change the RGB. So next step is just plugging these guys up to the GPU extension and then plug it in the graphics card and we're ready to go. Okay, so now that we have everything plugged up and ready to go, we have our Leon Lee streamers in this build, just cable extensions, RGB cable extensions. Once we have everything kind of lined up, what you're going to want to do is remove the corresponding screws that you think is going to fit this. So it's always good to kind of test fit it first. So in this case, not a huge thick card, so we only need 2. And what you're going to do here is you're obviously going to line up. You're going to make sure this is popped out first. Once you're done there, pretty self-explanatory. You're just going to slide the card in the slot. And you're going to want to hear it click. So give it a little force, not a lot. And you should be good. Kind of mess with it a little bit, but there we go. And then from there, once it's in, you'll hear that little hot clip secure. Then what you're going to do now is you're going to want to attach this to the corresponding cables. So plug those up and then you're set.